Hello, everyone, for another episode of the Weekly Orbit ending the 7th of July, 2023. My name's Pat. I'm here with my co-host, Wack. We're going to go over this week's hot topics in the rocket pool community. And we've got some RPIP. We've got some voting, new voting that one of our smart contract developers have been working on, along with some stats. So, you ready?
Absolutely. Let's get started.
Okay. All right. And one of the main milestones we've reached this week, WAC, was 3,000 node operators have registered to be validators on the Ethereum network and using Rocket Pool. It's a major milestone. I think right before Atlas, we're at 2,400, 2,300?
2,300, yeah, like that. So we've had a good 33% increase, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think I went on record right before Alice. I said 3,715 node operators by the end of the year. So that
That's
would
doable.
mean, just looking, I figured it out. That means we would need to add about 117 operators per month through December 31st.
Yeah, that's definitely
So
doable.
I think it'll be pretty close. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think somewhere around that, that's what I'm hoping that we get to. Somewhere within 3,500 to 4,000, and the higher the better. But that's I think 3,500 is kind of like the conservative estimate, and 4,000 is like the stretch, where I think 3,700 should be somewhere kind of realistic. I think so. That'll be really good. Yeah,
we'll see. Now, if we look at the node operator specifically, for the month of July so far, we've got 37 new operators. In June, we had 192. April and May were real blockbusters at 298 and 255, respectively. And I love this chart on the left here, Wack, because if you notice it breaks down mini pools by node operator.
Mm-hmm.
And by far the largest is one mini pool at 1,089. And that means Rocket Pool has allowed those who don't have 32 ETH to be able to stake, the small fish, I guess, which was really helped with decentralization.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really great that we have staking accessible for those people now. So with those one mini pools, those are people with 8 ETH mini pools or 16 ETH mini pools that haven't converted yet. So those numbers are really, really great that it's so overrepresented with those small operators.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, and so if you look at the historic chart of per month of new operators coming online, if we go back about a year, we're anywhere from 75, 150. Obviously the high was 298. So 117 is certainly within the realm of possibilities. So I'm excited if we can getting anywhere between 3,500 and 4,000 would be awesome by the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the node operator growth is really, really great to see. That 3,000 number, though, does have some caveats. So it's not 3,000 individual people. About 750 of those, or give or take, are all nodes. So that's a hosting service where people deposit their RPL and their ETH, and then they get validated spun up with that. So that's a chunk of those. Are with all nodes, and then there's a bunch of them with zero mini pools. So those are people who are running nodes in their machines but don't have any mini pools active. So whether you want to count those as nodes or not is not I count them as nodes, but they're not necessarily full nodes or whatever you want to call them. And then a lot of those validated nodes as well are one person running multiple machines or multiple nodes. So I think in honesty, the true number of unique individuals running nodes is probably around 1,500, maybe up to 2,000 at a push, but somewhere on the lower end of that, I think, is the actual unique people, which is still phenomenal. That is tremendous. Because when you consider the other, organizations out there, they're way, way, way behind. So it doesn't even compare.
Should we mention Lido at 29?
If we can, sure, why not? Yeah,
why not?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, here's a chart, and then we're going to move on to RPL distribution by node. And this is Dr. Worm's Dune analytics chart. And One thing that happened recently this last month was RPL ratio took a dump.
Mm-hmm.
And so normally we're at 0.025 for a while. Now we're at around 0.020. And what that means is some of those folks who are down on the lower end of the RPL collateral, lower end meaning around 10%, are now below that. And if we look at the chart here, it looks like maybe a couple hundred node operators are below the 10% threshold. So what that meant was this last RPL reward period, they didn't get any RPL rewards. It'll be interesting to see if we get a little bit of buying of RPL, because those folks now realize, hey, I didn't get my RPL this month. Why? And I'll have to buy up a little bit to get myself over that 10% collateral. And I think we've talked about before where the utility of RPL, having to use it as collateral, actually provides a floor for RPL price, because if it gets too low, people have to buy up to get over that 10% to get RPL rewards. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did see some buying happening, anecdotally, there were people in trading saying, oh, I'm below 10%, I need to buy X many RPL to get above 10%. And that makes sense. There's two ways, right? You can get your RPL to being effective again. One is by adding more, or two is by your RPL being worth more against the ETH. And since we're worth so much less this month compared to last month, people did have to buy some. I guess normally the best time to do is like the day before rewards, because you get a good idea of where you stand at that point with the ratio going up or down. But that's when some people are buying in the days leading up to the rewards period. So I don't know if I'm not skilled enough to measure that, like using like bots or anything like that. But anecdotally, it makes sense that some of those 250 or so node operators or 300 node operators were buying to fill that gap. So yeah.
What is the cutoff time for the snapshot before the reward? I know, is it 5 hours, 6 hours?
So what happens is the RPL price gets updated every, I think, 19 hours using the order updates every 19 hours. So going into the tree generation at 1:35 a.m. Eastern time every fourth Wednesday, that what the price will be in that tree generation. So at that point, you can check on your Grafana or your other metrics, whatever you're using, to see what your percentage of collateral is, and then use that to fill up. So that you'll definitely be at that point. So it doesn't matter what the market is doing at that point, as long as the order has updated the numbers on the system, then that's what the Merkle tree generation will be using.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think this time we had about 5 hours of gap in between.
5 hours. Yeah, I think I saw someone in trading, maybe it was Valdorf, who mentioned, someone had asked, when's the snapshot? And they're like, oh, you missed a couple hours ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Next stat, our favorite deposit pool. We had a nice deposit earlier. It looks like July 7th, which is today's recording, we're over a couple thousand, not bad. Yesterday we got 1,500. It's July 5th and 4th and 3rd. In the United States is a holiday weekend, July 4th, Independence Day on Tuesday. And I'm wondering if that played into it, just lower interest in crypto stuff while folks were barbecuing and doing fireworks. But today, a nice couple thousand ETH deposited.
Yeah, that July 5th was real outlier. Like, we haven't had a 2-digit day in a really long time. So that was definitely something that stuck out to me. And that holiday definitely does make sense as contributing towards part of that. I don't know what else was or wasn't happening to contribute to the rest of it, but that was definitely an outlier. But we've had a few really good days this week that actually have put us over last week's total already. So it's all right. Like, I was hoping that it'd be a bit higher, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah. Like the 25th, the week ending the 25th of June, we were at 5,637. Already we're at 6,083. So we've surpassed the last week of June, which is great. We'll see if that sustains itself going forward.
Absolutely.
Okay. On to some news items. This was a big week for a few different rocket pool improvement proposals, our PIPs. 3 are listed here. We have the first one, inflation and PDAO budget allocation. The second one was ODAO charter, and the third one was a PDAO charter. let's talk about the first one, the inflation and PDAO budget allocation. Do you want to walk us through this one, Wack? I think this was one of the major changes. This was talked about in the community for a long time. And what, before you start into giving us some details on it, I just remember the folks in the community talking about the ODAO, in particular, the commission or the rewards given, and that would be tackled right after Atlas. And what do you know? The community went to work. I know Valdorf headed up that, and here we are less than 90 days after Atlas, and we've already got a vote on Snapshot. So I just want to give a hats off to the community in Valdorf for really, following through immediately and starting working on the next project. And it's one of the things about Rocket Pool that's great is that this train just keeps moving forward, and a lot of it's because of the dedication of its members. So
absolutely.
With that, tell us about the RPIP 25 and 10.
Yeah, so there's 3 votes happening right now. There's 2 charters and there's 1 inflation change, and all 3 votes are set up in such a way that they will only pass if all 3 votes pass. If any one of the 3 does not pass, then the whole slate will be rejected and we'll go back to the drawing board and start again. Now, what's happened is that this one that you're looking at, RPIP 25 and 10, that's the one that's being amended, is the one that was going to capture the most headlines, pretty much, because this is the one where the inflation, the rewards that are going out to the ODAO will be reduced by 50%, like right out the door. As soon as this passes, the numbers will be changed on the contracts. So the ODAO will be getting a smaller amount of money. And then each month that goes by, that will be reduced again for the next year until it reaches 90% less than what it is now. So there's a huge, pay decrease that the ODAO are voting. Well, the PDAO is voting for the ODAO, and that money is going to start going to the IMC, basically, or the management committees, and to do with as they get more money coming through. So this is really, really going to help, the protocol, I think, because the PDAO is going to be getting a lot more money. The GMC, the grants committee, the incentives committees will be getting more money to be able to actually spend on growing Rocket Pool, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and so specifically, the reduction, the ODAO gets 15% of inflation rewards each month. It's going to be immediately knocked down to 8, like you said, and then every month a little less until after 12 months, they'll be getting 1.5% of the inflation every month.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, hopefully, over 12 months, the value of RPL goes up. And so that, even though they're getting paid less RPL in terms of its price in USD, it's going to go up as well.
Yeah.
But what more importantly, I think, is what you said, that some of this RPL is going to be reallocated over to the grants committee and the incentive committees to help with making, that we talked about last week with Jasper. He had proposed, hey, let's divvy this new funding up between helping to incentivize our ETH on L2s and make RPL liquidity more attractive and deeper.
Exactly. So that was in line with assuming that this vote is going to get passed, which is very strongly likely that it will pass, and then what we'll do with that afterwards. So that's where that comes from, and that's where it stems from. So he's already spending the money that we haven't even gotten yet. So that's fine.
Sure. Yeah, the votes look really positive so far. They've all met quorum. Right now, there's
they haven't. So
they haven't.
There's one with the ODAO, is the one on Snapshot is just signaling from the PDAO towards the ODAO about how they want them to vote. The ODAO votes are actually happening on chain using a different system. So the vote in the middle there, that hasn't reached quorum yet. We've only had 6 ODAO members vote, and they've all voted in favor, but we need 10 of them. So we're just waiting for more of them to come through. But that will almost definitely pass also.
Yeah, there seems to be universal agreement. And the other 2, the charters, really just kind of outline the constitutions for both the ODAO and the PDAO, outlining, high level what are we here for? Yeah, that type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great. All right, our next item is Kane from the team. He says in Discord, he dropped in one day and said, I've drafted up an idea and done viability testing on a system that would implement the current off-chain governance system. And I think cut off my screen here a little bit. It would implement the current off-chain governance system on-chain to remove the team's position as a middleman for executing the will of the PDAO. So as I recall, when the team solicited the community for next projects or next steps after Atlas, one of the issues that the community wanted was, hey, how can we decentralize the protocol more, and specifically the PDAO? And so Kane's been working on this new voting system. Can you give our listeners a little bit of a breakdown of what he's been up to?
Absolutely. So the current governance systems works in such a way that there's discussions that pretty much start in trading or the governance threads of the Discord forum, page basically, and then that gets taken to the DAO forum, which is forum I think DAO.rocketpool.net. So if someone makes a forum post with their ideas, that goes there. The discussion happens. People kind of like talk back and forth about like what it should look like, what it shouldn't look like, what form it should take. Then there's something called a temperature check that happens, where should we do this thing, should we not do this thing, and that will then lead to a formal RPIP being written or an amendment of a current RPIP like being written. Once that's all done and people agree with the language of the RPIP, then that will go to the snapshot vote, which we were just talking about, right? Now, the problem with the snapshot vote is that even if we have 100% agreement or 99% agreement like we do on the votes at the moment, those votes still have to be executed by the team member, a team member. So they have control of a wallet that's called a Guardian wallet, and that is basically a hugely centralizing force at Rocket Pool at the moment, where even though you have all these elements of decentralization which are amazing, there's a bottleneck at this point of this guardianship. So if you want to make changes in ODAO inflation, which is what we're voting on now, even if 100% of the community says that this is what we want, until a team member goes and modifies the contract using that special wallet that they have, you can't do anything. So this is like all off-chain voting. That's what this is called. Now, the system that Kane is working on and like the ideas that he has about is something called on-chain voting. So what happens with that is, you have to spend gas to vote, which is one thing because it'll be a transaction on the Ethereum network. But what happens that is, as you execute the vote, and once you hit quorum and the thresholds of passing the vote, then that piece of contract automatically gets executed on chain. So there's no one in the middle of making those changes. Like it goes directly from PDAO to the actual contracts, smart contracts. So that is a huge change because it removes that man in the middle, which is what Kane was referencing here. And like it's a hugely centralizing point right now, and then that gets removed completely. So it's actually like a really, really amazing thing that he's working on here.
Yeah, that sounds big, and I don't think there's any other protocol in the crypto space working on such a thing like this. So
there's some complexities about the Rocket Pool situation that means you need a bespoke solution. There are other DAOs that use on-chain voting, and there are tools available that let you do on-chain voting. However, none of them are applicable for Rocket Pool because of the way that we have our vote set up. So we don't have something called token voting, right? So owning the RPL token doesn't grant you vote. The only way you get vote for Rocket Pool is if you are using that RPL token on a node that is staking within the certain boundaries and thresholds, then you get access to a vote based on that RPL you hold. So with those differences in mind, you need to understand that there's nothing out there that has that unique system of voting. So if we just wanted to do a simple token vote way, then that would be quite easy. It's just this is a bespoke situation and there's no one else doing that. So that's why you need to do it in-house basically, or pay someone to do it for us.
Right. Yeah, most DAOs, it's like, well, whoever has the most tokens can vote and have the most influence. And with RPL right from the beginning, doing the quadratic voting, it really said, well, we're going to try to reduce the influence from speculators, and we really want to hear from the long-term holders, the node operators in this case. Right?
Yeah, so the speculators are taken out instantly, right? Because they're not node operators, so their power goes to zero. And then the quadratic aspect of it is the whales. So if you have 1 million RPL staked, like one whale in our community does, then the power of vote you have is not proportional to the power of vote you or I have, even though we've got way less RPL. Per RPL, our vote power is higher than if you have 1 million RPL, because it's the square root of that number. So that's where the quadratic element comes into it. So it kind of limits the power of our biggest holders, while also giving a good representation to our smaller holders. So it's a really wonderful solution. It's just in the beginning stages of working on it now, and it'll probably come through in the next update. But once that happens, then we'll be in a very good situation.
So to vote, would you have to? You said you're going to have to. There's gas fees involved, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to vote, is it going to be on mainnet or is it going to be on an L2 to try
It'll
to
be on
reduce
mainnet because the contracts are on mainnet, so most likely will be on mainnet. We'll have to talk about how that's going to work in the community. What most likely will be happening is that people will use their delegation powers a lot more than they do it now. So a lot of people just go and vote now. Whereas in that situation, you'll delegate your vote to someone who you trust, and they vote along with you, and then they will vote on your behalf. So only one person pays the gas instead of 10 people paying the gas.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. So we'll look forward to seeing that over the coming months. And that kind of wraps up this week's episode. It's a short one, but as usually, there's always something to talk about, even during a major holiday week in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
So until next week, just hit the like and subscribe buttons if you can. Listen to your podcast too. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher.
Stitcher.
I'm sorry,
Stitcher. That's the one. Yeah.
And Spotify. Yeah. So check that out. None of this was financial advice, of course. And WAC, we'll see you next week. And to the community, thanks for listening. We always appreciate everyone tuning in. So take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay.